Ryan Coogler.
Hey, Ryan, first, I saw the movie. I want to ask this very primitive horror movie question first because I like the movie a lot. I don't like horror movies. I've always avoided horror movies because I get nightmares. As a kid, I tried to read Twilight, got nightmares, so I stopped a long time ago, right? Like, I'm not even playing. Like, I get nightmares for everything. So when it said horror, I was like, oh, man, I don't know if I can do this. But so my very primitive movie question is, as a writer and director, I don't feel like this is the horror I think of from like the 80s and the 90s. Like, how have horror movies changed since then? Because this didn't feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, horror is a genre, and you a musicologist yourself, bro, and you know that genre is kind of shifting and change and it's really it's really like a set of expectations that's placed on a work of art. You know what I'm saying? Because our movie has vampires in it, it gets violent and scary at certain parts of it. We can call it a horror movie. You know what I'm saying? But it also has a lot of other things in it as well. Like it's got a lot of music in it. It's got romance. It's got it's got action. It's got all of these other things. But I think that once you stick a vampire in something, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna get the horror claims. But the 80s and 90s, man, a lot of those horror movies were just completely like unapologetic, man. Your slasher movie, your Nightmare on Elm Street, your Carpenter films, your Wes Craven films. This isn't that, though it's inspired by that. I guess that's the best way to describe it. I mean, it's the same way that like rock music has changed or blues music has changed. A blues song in 2025 is not going to sound like a blues song sounded in 1965. You know what I'm saying? It's going to have elements of other genres, melded into it, whether it's the mixing style or the use of auto tune or distortion or any of those things, right? Horror in genres and filmmaking is no different.
Another clueless question. Now, back in the day, I used to watch Patty Duke's show on Nick at Night because it was on black and white, and they look alike, they talk alike, and I was like, how do they get twins to do that? And that was way back in the day. And so this, you got twins. You got Michael B. Jordan playing a set of twins. Now, is there a stand-in that kind of looks like him from the back doing any of that, or is it all digital?
No, it's actually like it's actually simpler than that, man. It's usually all Mike. I would say 90 to 95% of the shots, we just shot it twice, with Mike playing both roles. Now, when he's acting, we have a twin double, a guy named Percy Bill, who's an actor, same build as Mike, same complexion, who Mike acts across. So when Mike's looking at the other character, he has somebody there who can give him his lines back, But then we use a piece of equipment called a techno dolly, where we then shoot the scene another time with all of the camera movements and all of that. And Mike goes and switches places with Percy, and now he can be on camera as the other twin. And we use a stitching technology to put both shots together. There are some shots where Mike's performance is projected onto Percy's body. That might be a scene where the twins are fighting each other, or a scene where you're looking at maybe the back of Mike's head. But those shots are few and far in between in the movie.
Do you ever see one where you see a little too much of not Mike's face, and you're like, man, he nailed it, but we gotta crop the shot more because we're seeing the other guy's face?
It would happen sometimes, but usually we use the halo rig that Mike would film. It would film Mike from basically every angle with the digital camera. It was a technology that was developed for this movie. And then in those cases, we would then project Mike's performance, onto Percy's body.
The music was spectacular. How'd you find Miles? Because I mean, that dude sounds like an old man in a young kid's body.
That's a great question, man. We did a global search with our casting director, Francine Maisler. We knew the movie would only work if we found the right kid to play this role, a role of a musician who's so amazing that they can kind of like, rip a hole in space and time, and summon vampires, to come and get him. We looked all over, man. We looked for actors who could sing. We looked for singers who can act. Just a big, massive search. and we found him in Brooklyn, New York. Man, he's a musician. It's his first time acting in a feature film. And he's grew up in the church in a big gospel family. His mom's a singer. His grandfather's a singer, and he had this, he's kind of a child prodigy musically, and he was touring with the artist Her on an international tour. When we got a hold of him, man, and he did an audition. We heard that voice, and he had to actually teach himself how to play the guitar for the movie, because he's a pianist. But yeah, man, I'm so thankful we found him, man. He gave an incredible performance.
The genesis of Sinners, are you just sitting down at a laptop going, man, I got this idea? And then where do you start when writing it? Like, what's the first line you write?
I usually start with the outline, but for this one, because we had to find this kid, I had to describe the character of Sammy, and I came up with this concept of, if you keep dancing with the devil, one day he's gonna follow you home. Because I knew he would have a preacher father who was kind of warning him against this lifestyle of the of the blues musician. But look, I had an uncle, my uncle James, who was from Mississippi, born and raised there, and then moved to Oakland and married my grandmother's little sister. And he was like the oldest male member of my family for a long time. And I loved my uncle, and all he did was listen to blues music. He passed away in 2015, and I'll find myself listening to those albums just to think of him. You know what I mean? As a kind of a morning ritual, and that's kind of where the idea for this movie came from.
How do you feel about spoilers? And I asked that because I wasn't going to mention vampires because it wasn't in when I read the description of the movie. You mentioned vampires, but to the show, when I was explaining to them why I liked it, I never said that word because I didn't know if that was a spoiler. So specifically, I guess we can say vampires. And then two,
Absolutely.
okay, hey, everybody, vampires. Okay, now we know. And then you got to protect against spoilers, just the spoiler culture. How would you define it now?
I mean, it's intense, man. It's so intense. Everybody is very used to instant gratification. I think it's like smartphone culture, to be honest with you, because everything has a Yelp review. You got so many choices that everybody wants to know what something is before they buy it, or before they give it its time. So I think that causes a real hunger for spoilers, and it causes a hunger for knowing what everything is before you experience it, which I really think is kind of harming the theatrical experience and the viewing experience. Man, I remember a time when you might have seen a trailer before you watch something. You know what I'm saying? But now you got trailers, you got reaction videos, you got people breaking it down, you got a thousand critics, you got Rotten Tomatoes, you got an audience score, So I think that's not just movies. I think that's everything. Before you buy a T-shirt, you want to read the reviews on what happened with, what's the T-shirt feel like, what happens when you watch, it's a product of the information age, and it's something that that you have to deal with as a creative. But I did make this movie for the theatrical experience. I wanted it to be experienced in the theater with strangers, not knowing what's gonna happen next. So I've been really cognizant of how we talk about it. But yeah, it's definitely okay to say that it's vampires and people get bit in the neck. It's crazy, amongst other things.
Michael B. Jordan, a big part of your history of success, Black Panther, Creed, and then now Sinners. What is he like as a worker, as an actor? What is he like?
I mean, he's incredible, man. He's amongst the top percentile, right? There's very few movie stars like him who can open a movie the way that he has done in the past, and in the way that we hoping he will for Sinners. But what's so special about Mike is, he grew up on a film set. He started as a child actor, acting on HBO shows like The Wire, and also was in Friday Night Lights and Parenthood. So people kind of grew up watching him in their homes. And then I was fortunate enough to work with him on Fruitvale Station when he made the transition to being a lead actor. He had been in a couple movies before that, your Chronicles and your Red Tails. For me, it was the first time working with him when he was the star of the movie, and he's maintained his kindness, his humility, and his work ethic, man. He's the same way as he was when he was a young man before he was this global superstar, and that's so rare, bro. because the lifestyle of being a star kind of it can eat away at your spirit. You know, it can eat away at your kindness. It can make you not willing to engage with the average person. But he has none of that, man. He still is a family oriented guy. He walks on set. He knows everybody's name from the assistants all the way up to the producer. Treats everybody the same. You know, and I'll work with him, bro, as long as I can. You know, for that fact.
Whenever he shows up for Creed 1 and the first time he takes his shirt off, where you're like, dang, you didn't have to go that hard.
Yeah, he goes hard, bro. Like whatever direction he's going in, he's gonna go you know, he's kind of like an athlete that way, man. Or a musician, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you hear these stories about a guy like Kirk Hammett who plays you know, guitar for Metallica and kills, and kills it, you know, sells millions of records, but still wants to go back and get training on how to play the guitar better. You know what I mean? You hear these stories about these kind of people. Mike is like that. You know, he went to a almost like an acting boot camp before he played in this role. You know, working with the dialect coach and a body control coach, but also working with some twin consultants that I found for him. You know, in terms of getting them into the psychology of what it's like to be an identical twin to help develop these performances, man. But he has an incredible work ethic, and I think that's why people show up to the movies to see what he does.
So I want to talk about the music for a second. And being someone who grew up loving blues, uh, Alabama, Mississippi, Muscle Shoals, like all of that area, right? Because I'm from Arkansas,
Yeah,
so all of that kind of trickled
yeah.
in. But it was
Yeah,
always
Arkansas gets a shout out in the movie, right? From Little Rock a couple
a
times.
couple times, yeah, because they were like going to Little
Yeah.
Rock to do their thing.
Yep.
So the question for me is like Robert Johnson apparently sold his soul to the devil, to be so good, like the Crossroads. Like how much
Yeah.
did that come into your mind when? Because that's what I thought of, especially when it first starts playing, because
Oh,
he's
big
so
time.
good.
Yeah, big time, bro. No, 100%. And what was crazier, you know, there's two books, man, that we studied for this, you know, and I bought these books for everybody, the crew, the cash. One is called Blues People by Leroy Jones, who would later change his name to Amiri Baraka. And another book is called Deep Blues by Robert Palmer. And it was in that book, uh, you know, a deep dive study on the anthropology of the Delta blues. It was in that book that I discovered that Robert Johnson wasn't the first person to go around saying that he sold his soul to become a good guitar player. It was actually a guy named Tommy Johnson who was the first person on record to say that, who was a little bit before Robert Johnson. You know, and and it was a kind of like a marketing thing for him. You know, he would go around with a rabbit's foot and develop this like kind of mystical aura around himself. You know, to kind of sell himself, and also discovered that story had prevalence in West African folklore. You know, and it was a deity named Papa Legba, who oftentimes stories about him would be misinterpreted as being stories about the Christian devil. You know, but that was kind of who you would make a deal with like that for artistic prominence. You know, that would come at a price. And you know, for me, once reading that story and doing a deep dive into it, I got obsessed with the concept of the Faustian deal. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to think about it for the concept for every character. What is the deal that they make with themselves and with others? You know, in this circumstance of Clarksdale, Mississippi, 1932. You know, just how much the odds were pitted against some of these people. You know, what would they be willing to give up? You know, for escape? And through that, you know, there came the concept of the vampire and what he had to offer them. You know, so it made me really excited to make this movie even more.
All right, two final questions. This one is different personalities take different management types. As you're on set directing, are you having to manage all the personalities different based on what actually what motivates or inspires or doesn't hurt their feelings?
Absolutely, bro. You managing a lot of artists, a lot of professionals. It's a lot of unions present, different unions. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta respect it all, man. And I learned fast, man, on my first movie. You know, that everybody responds to different styles of management, man, different styles of collaboration. You know, some people have no ego, some people have ginormous ones. Everybody works with their heart. You know, everybody is working long hours, man. People are missing their families. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be cognizant of all these things. And for me as a filmmaker, I have to get to know the people that I'm working with. for me to have success. You know what I mean? I can't really work with strangers. You know, if I'm working with somebody for the first time, you know, I'll spend an hour or 2 hours just getting to know like how they tick. You know what I'm saying? What's important to them? You know what I'm saying? What's going on in their life? Do they have children? You know what I'm saying? Are they in a long distance relationship? You know, all these things are good to know and have perspective on. You know, I came up playing football first, bro. That was my first love. And I remember the coaches that were really that made me feel good about myself. And I remember the coaches that made me feel like shit. You know what I mean? And I gave better performances to the ones that made me feel good about myself, man. You know what I'm saying? We had better records as teams. So I always wanted to be the former, you know what I'm saying, whenever I'm dealing with my cast and my crew.
I'm not a horror guy, but I thought it was great because it wasn't what I was expecting. And never said vampire until now. I'd recommend everybody. It's out now. It's Warner Brothers Pictures' new movie, Sinners. Are you nervous? Are you like it's about to hit? You get nervous?
I'm always nervous, bro. I'm nervous talking. I'm nervous talking to Bobby Bones right now, man. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna let it ride, you know, and hopefully people show up, man. I really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you having me, and giving me an opportunity to share this movie, man. I love this movie. I love music. You know, I love Ludwig Göransson, who did the music for this, who's done the music for all of my films, man. And this movie is a product of that love, man. It's a home cooked meal, and it's for everybody. And I hope everybody has a chance to go out and see it, preferably in IMAX. It'll only be in IMAX for 2 weeks, you know. But yeah, man, folks go out and enjoy, man.
What's really cool, not to hold you anymore, but you talk about the music. It's so music intensive. I love, and I don't want to spoil anything, whenever it goes generationally through a certain. I thought that was such a great idea. Hard to pull off, but you did. But that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to manage. But it was awesome. Like so, not that you care what I think, but yeah, it was amazing.
I do, bro. I mean, come on, man. You Bobby Bones, bro.
That's true. I am. That's true. I am. Ryan, appreciate the time. Thank you so much. I hope you crush it with this, like you have everything else. I don't know, man. It was great. And everybody go check out Warner Brothers' new picture, new movie, Sinners. I loved it. Ryan Coogler, our guest. Thank you, Ryan. See you, buddy. Thank you so much.
It's about